Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to High Top Sports Game Day. A little later in the afternoon, had some things in the morning, but I know we got the Big 12 Championship kicked off right now. Most of you probably watching that, as you should. Oh, Arizona State's going the wrong way, boys. Oh, no. It's live as we speak. But we're going to talk about SEC, ACC, and, of course, the Big 12 Championship. Like, Sheldon, why are you wearing a Cowboy hat today? Well, of course, we got Cowboy Ty on the show. But my man, little man, he's been saying hook 'em all day today. I taught him how to say hook 'em a couple weeks ago, and he's just been saying it. So I feel like it was an omen. Hook 'em, boys. We're going to be talking about, of course, Georgia, Texas in today's show. But before we do, Cowboy Ty, welcome, my man. How are you?
Good, buddy. I'm ready. It's been the end of the season. You know, it's been a terrible season for us, but I've enjoyed the college football season. The playoffs are ramping up, and Alabama's here. They're over there praying that Clemson does not beat SMU today.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that because the only way that Alabama gets pushed out, which look, I love the SEC. I always want them to be in it. I wouldn't mind it. I don't feel they deserve an opportunity to be there. But yeah, Lee says I hate UGA as much as the next guy, but we can't be okay with Texas winning the SEC in the first year. I agree, and you know what's funny is the three games we're gonna be talking about today. All three of them have a team in the championship, and it's their first year in it. Texas first year in the SEC, Oregon their first year in the Big Ten, and they're favored to win it. And then of course SMU's also favored to win it, first year in the ACC. So really awesome year. I mean, for college football, just to see how all this thing unfolded. But yeah, let's talk about this first game. We got the SEC Championship, Georgia versus Texas. And I said it on Wednesday, man. Like, I hate Georgia. And it's tough for me to pick, Georgia. But I also don't like when somebody comes into my neighborhood and wins day one. All right? Because Texas fans, they're going to be hooking them all over the place. And they just flipped Justice Terry, big 5-star lineman. Texas, again, they get on a roll. I'm telling you, boys. I've been saying with their oil money, it's going to be dangerous. So I'm tough with it. But like I said, little man saying hook 'em. So I'm either way. I think I can't really lose because I can make fun of the Georgia, and if they don't win, then it's like Texas. Either way, both teams are in this. So right now, I feel like this game's more of a pride thing and a seeding thing, right? Because the winner of this gets a bye, which is huge.
Yeah, that is going to be a huge factor. You sit back and you watch. Like, I don't really know who Georgia is because, like, if you watch them against Texas last time in Texas, they look like they're like, oh, okay, this is real Georgia. Then last week, they got absolutely destroyed up front by Georgia Tech. It wasn't – Georgia Tech should have won the game. Let's just face it. They should have won a game. They blew that game, whatever. But, like, I'm more nervous about what team – like, Texas offense doesn't look great. Their defense, however, looks phenomenal. Georgia, Carson Beck has not turned the ball over the last couple of weeks. I think he's got like 12 TDs, no picks over the last couple of weeks, and that's been huge, but the team hasn't looked any better. So I'm really trying to figure out what Georgia is going to do today. They've got to stop the run better. There's no getting around that. They cannot come out and get beat up front because Texas, let's just face it, has better athletes up front than Georgia Tech does. But, they're going to run the ball with Wisner, and they're going to run the ball with Blue. And I expect them to lean on that running game a lot today because Ewers is banged up. He's got a right ankle sprain. I don't know how mobile he's going to be. He has not looked that great this year to begin with. So it's going to be extremely interesting today to watch that football game. I don't really know which way to go. I think I will root Texas on, but I have no idea who's going to win, to be honest.
The only game that Georgia really got up for and did what we expect Georgia to do this year was against Texas. Outside of that, they've gotten off to a slow start every single week. They haven't really found the rhythm we would think Georgia would find. Now, playing a team again, playing Texas again, do they kind of now know what Georgia can throw at you? Georgia doesn't really have much up their sleeve to throw at you. Their defense is kind of their heart and soul. So if Texas can go, mend that a little bit. But again, Georgia has struggled against mobile quarterbacks. Haynes King's another one at Georgia Tech. We just said Quinn Ewers is dealing with an injury. He's not going to be very mobile. That has been their success. When DJ Lagway went down in Gainesville, or not in Gainesville, but against Florida, that's when Georgia was able to kind of pounce and pin their ears back. And I think they're going to be able to do the same thing today and just bring the pressure because they can trust their cornerback play and their safety play to do its job. So I don't know. I think Texas can get the ball running, which Florida was running the ball very efficiently when they had good quarterback play, when they had the ability to, when DJ Lagway was in the game. Once that was taken away, you kind of realize, okay, we're going to stack the box and you're not going to run it because we know you can't throw it. Texas has to lean on that run game and establish that. We were going at 7 yards a clip when Florida played them, and you got to think that Texas has the talent to withstand Georgia's D line and be able to hold that. So look, they're favored. They're favored for a reason. The other thing, though, we said it all season, Texas hasn't been battle tested like the other SEC teams, and I'm not saying that to like, oh, they shouldn't be there. That's besides the point. But for Florida, I've really found found a rhythm towards the end of the year because, I mean, at this point, it's a marathon, right? They're not just going to get knocked to the mouth. Where Texas, the Georgia game was really the only thing that really scared them. They had Vandy, they had a very weak Florida team they had to go up against, and then the A&M team, they kind of fell off. That game wasn't what we thought it was a few weeks early on.
Yeah, honestly, if I had to pick right now, if like Florida, I tell you what, I think Florida is playing better than Texas at the moment. I think they're playing better than Georgia. They were like, I'm not just saying that. And obviously, I'm not a fan of either team. I really think they are playing better than both those teams. But obviously, the start of the season was rough and terrible. But like, I think they've gotten better. I think these two teams have kind of stalemated to me.
Yeah.
And Travis Etienne was a big part of that first game in Texas, or Trevor Etienne. I'm sorry. And he might, I don't know if he's going to go today or not. They did get Roderick Robinson back last week. He only carried the ball like 3 or 4 times. Nate Frazier leaned on, but I feel like ETN was a big part of that game plan last time these two teams played. I know he's questionable. I don't know if he's going to go, but I think that is a big factor if he does not play today.
Good point. Very good point. Again, there was a lot of rumors of him possibly going back into the portal, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that. So you're taking Texas minus 2.5 here today then? Cowboy tie?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Texas. I like I said, I wouldn't bet this game either way. But if I had to pick a team, I think I'll just take Texas and just see what happens. I think it'll be a good football game.
25 on Arizona State right now, -1. Again, we use betus.com. Use code YouTube150. Get back 150% on your first deposit, then 125 on your next two, up to $2,000. So this is always fun. These are always fun games to bet on. They're all basically pick'ems. They're all within 3 points today. The Arizona State Iowa State is the closest game. With the news about the wide receiver going down, it moved from I think 2.5 to basically a pick'em. But
yeah,
look,
that was a big loss. That was a huge loss. Jordan Tyson was their whole passing. I mean, he was their whole passing game. So
yeah.
Look, they're interesting.
Holding their own now. Iowa State, I think, where their struggle is if Arizona State can kind of bust it wide open. Offensively, I don't think Iowa State's going to be able to keep up, and that's why I took Arizona State today. So, will he be back for the playoffs?
No, he broke his collarbone. He's done for the year. And yeah, they were a little sleeper team for me, and but once again, you can't. He was one of their, it was between him, Scadaboo, and Jordan Tyson. Scadaboo's awesome, and if you don't get a chance, watch him right now. He's a blast to watch. Guy's tougher than nails. He'll get 30 carries and run people over. He's great. I love him.
Reminds me of the kid from Mizzou last year. Same kind of typical, just run it down your throat. Does not care. Let's dive into the next big game. These both games I think like at 7 or 8 o'clock is the ACC Championship, SMU versus Clemson. I would say, I can't say this isn't the least excited. I feel like this one and the Penn State game, they feel very lopsided going into it on paper, but Clemson and Dabo carry that logo. They carry that enigma of like they've had success in the past. But if you take a look at this Clemson team, fall against South Carolina, a close one. The recruiting class is in complete disarray, ranking 30th, 35th, or something like that. Even Florida State was able to pull ahead of them this year, which is surprising. We know that Dabo has been very vocal about not going into the portal. We've seen Dabo kind of snapping over the last 2 years, just getting frustrated with the fan base. Could this be it for Dabo? Could this be the last run for Dabo Swinney? And SMU, I want SMU in the standings by a landslide. Although Clemson winning would knock out Bama, which I think would be funny. I like the Mustangs here a lot. I would love for them to go in. Like, I don't want Texas to win the SEC year one. I would love for SMU to go in when Miami's never won it in year one. And I think they've got just a nasty firepower offense. The only loss they had this year, SMU, was to a tough BYU team, and it was like a 2-point or 3-point game. And BYU was firing all cylinders at that point. And not that they didn't really fire all season, but they kind of got caught up throughout the season. But early on, I think they're a little bit harder to read and caught SMU. But since then, SMU hasn't slowed down. I mean, they have been battle tested in the ACC, I feel like, and have handled every thing thrown at them. And that offense is going to be hard to stop. And Clemson's defense is good. I just don't know if Klubnik is going to be able to get it done today.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at SMU wants to run the football with Jennings as their quarterback, and they want to run with Brashad Smith, and that's not exactly who they were at the beginning of the year, but now they've kind of found who they are. And I can tell you, this is not a good matchup for the Clemson Tigers. They over the last couple of weeks, they gave up 265 yards rushing to the Citadel, and then last week I think they gave up 288 yards rushing to South Carolina. So when a team wants to run the ball against Clemson, and that's what their strength is. That is not a good matchup. Klubnik, he's played efficient, but he hasn't played phenomenal. They haven't ran the ball worth 2 cents. Phil Moffa's really been struggling over the last couple of weeks. He can't get anything going. This Clemson team seems to be limping into this thing. It's only a 2.5 point spread. It's weird. I like SMU, but like part of me wants Clemson to win just so I can see what they decide to do with SMU. Would they? They say that these don't matter. They say that these championship games are not going to be the difference in what a team gets knocked out or not. But would they take a 3-loss Alabama
No way.
over a 2-loss SMU? I'm just saying, I don't think they should, because if you look at Alabama's losses, they're bad losses. The OU 24-3, not even scoring against OU was bad, and then losing to Vanderbilt after saying Vanderbilt was the easiest place to play where it doesn't even count. Doesn't even count as a home field, and then you lost to them. And obviously Vanderbilt, better than what they usually are, but not, in the
Still
echelon,
Vanderbilt.
6-6. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're Vanderbilt. They're not good. They don't have the athletes you guys do. So I think those two losses, like bad losses, should keep them out. But we'll see. I think SMU is going to handle it, though. I do think they're going to handle the business, and I think they're going to take out Clemson, and then they're going to sneak Alabama in this thing, and then we're going to see what everyone has, because they're going to get matched up against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's strength is running the football, so we'll see. It should be interesting if Alabama does sneak in this thing.
Clemson definitely backdoored their way into this thing, just like Alabama's backdooring their way into the college football playoffs. Yeah, you can't kick SMU out. That would be asinine if they were to lose this game. So I listen. Do they say that losing these games don't matter because of where every team is ranked, or is that in general, or just because
They're
of how
just
the
saying
rank
that the conference championships are not going to decide if you
forever
lose a
though,
conference
or
championship.
just
They're
this
not going to
year?
kick you out. They're saying this year. I don't know if that's like something moving forward,
Because
but
let's say
like
Bama was
this
in it,
is
right?
more seed.
Yeah, let's say
What's
Bama
that?
was in it in the SEC championship, sitting at 11, and they lose. You would have to move them down.
But I don't. But then that's not. I don't think you can, because the teams below them are also not
Hasn't
going to have a
played.
game to play.
Got you. That
So
makes sense.
that's why I feel like they're saying this is more of a seeding thing than it is knocking out thing. So, which does make
So
sense,
SMU
because
shouldn't move at all, is what right with this
SMU should
loss.
not move. They could maybe drop like a spot or two,
Yeah,
like
because of
depending, but
but nobody's behind them that's playing today.
right, and that's why they're saying that these things aren't going to matter, and
Okay, that's
it's
fair.
more of a
That's fair.
seeding
Yeah, because
situation.
nobody not playing should get an advantage for not playing, and I like that. Right, you shouldn't get to move up, so it helps the seeding, which I'm cool with. So that's fine. Look, Iowa State, the winner of this game, Iowa and Arizona, they're going to get the 12th seed because Boise's going to get the bye, which is crazy to think that
It is wild. Oregon doesn't want to see Boise, I can tell you.
Look, people forget about that game, but that was kind of a dogfight for Oregon. We talked about it afterwards, and that was their second Idaho team in a week, and they kind of were struggling. And look, it's a better
39-38, I
win.
think.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
better. They came back. They came
Boise's
back
dangerous because they can run the ball, and when you can run the ball,
effectively.
it right. So then you control clock, and you just limit the other team's possessions. And if you just keep giving to Gianti, he's going to bust one like we saw last night. They kept feeding him, and then he finally started to break it, and they just couldn't stop him. It was more of just wear the other team down, and
Yep.
that's what they try to do, and they do it effectively.
Keem Leak says if Clemson wins, there's no Miami. Miami's not in it regardless. I know it says that
No,
they have
they're
a
out.
12th seed, but the winner of this doesn't have a seed, so that's why they're not in the 12th spot right now, because whoever wins this takes that spot, but they're not in it currently. I don't know why I can't pull this up, but my wife is saying, she said happy birthday, but I can't see it. $5. She said happy birthday, babe. I don't know why it's not pulling up. But
Happy birthday! Oh, sure, happy birthday! Maybe I'll send you $5.
no, very good. I don't know why our comments aren't pulling up. I don't know what's oh, I know why. There we go. It was
There you
behind
go, buddy.
it was behind the big thing.
You're still hungover. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm struggling. It was rock and rolling. Thank you, baby. All right, good stuff. Let's get on to so yeah, I'm taking SMU. You're taking Clemson,
No. I am taking SMU. I think it's a bad matchup.
but
for
you want
They
Clemson to
can't
win.
stop the run. I'm curious to what would happen. I don't really want to see Clemson in because I don't want Dabo to make it.
It won't be
Something
good
about him.
football. I don't think it'll be good football. I
Yeah,
think Bama would be a better team in it than Clemson.
and I also would be very intrigued by that Notre Dame Bama game. So that would intrigue me a lot more than I think Clemson and
That's my
whoever the
point.
hell they would.
That's my point. Bama being, and as much as we want to hate on it, they would be a better fight and it would be a better show and could go on a run. I mean, that's just what Bama. I mean, we say what Bama does, but they have the talent to win
This
football
year, I'm not
games.
so sure.
Yeah, but they have the talent
Yeah,
to win football games. But
they do. They do.
I agree. So this one to me, so I think the ACC one is the most lopsided one. I think that SMU pulls away single handedly. I think this has the potential to be that. I think given the fact they haven't played each other, and again, just kind of that old style Big Ten football, I think it'll be closer than we think. But there's also part of me where I think Oregon might just blow the lid off this thing because again, both teams don't care. But Dan, I know Dan cares about winning this much more. But Penn State, this is the first time they've been in the Big Ten championship from quite some time, and probably feel like they have an actual opportunity to win. So there's got to be a lot of pride here. Of again, James Franklin doesn't want to give up that first spot, and Dan wants to just bury everybody. Dan does not want to lose a game. So I see this thing getting ugly, honestly. But I have a weird feeling it's going to be close because we think it's going to be so lopsided. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm taking the Ducks -3 regardless. I think the Ducks win, but I think it could be close to the end, and then I think they kind of pull away. But I don't see. Again, they backdoored their way into this Penn State. I know they kind of looked flat against Ohio State, which we saw. I don't believe Ohio State's looked that great all year long. They're going to limp into the playoffs as well, and again, they're going to get a home field bye. That might be a factor too with SMU losing. That'll be interesting to see how that kind of shakes up. But playing at Ohio State or one of these teams is going to be another one. Because if Penn State loses, they'll probably host a game at Penn State. That would be fun to watch. So this game had a lot of implications as well too. If Oregon loses, right, then you're having a game at Oregon. So should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, when you sit back and you look at this game, I mean, you see, like, it seems to me that Oregon just has more firepower than Penn State. But when you watch it, like, when you think about Penn State, you think about grind out football and you think about running the ball and you think about, Aller's not trying to throw the ball over 20 times a game. That's not what they want to do. And then you have Tyler Warren, who might be the best player in the country that, people do not know about. He is absolutely incredible. If you have never seen this guy play, he plays every position on the field. The only positions he has not played on offense is guard and center. I mean, the dude is insane.
Wow.
They lined him up as tackle once to run some trick play or whatever. But he's incredible. He used to be a quarterback. They moved him to tight end, and he just understands the game better than anyone. He's been absolutely dynamic. No one's been able to guard him. I'm very intrigued to how they use him today because I know Lanning is planning for this guy because that is their offense. They got to get him the football, and then they got to run the ball with their two backs that they have, Singleton and Allen. They don't really have a threat at wide receiver, so it's going to be interesting to see how Oregon plays. Do they just man up on the outside and they just try to stop, the tight end, and they try to stop the run game that Penn State has? Because Aller is not exactly just throw the ball down the field. That's not really who he is. So I'm intrigued. I do think that Oregon's going to win the game. Penn State needs to control the clock, but if we sit here and you look, like Oregon's kind of not exactly been Oregon over the last couple of weeks. They struggled in Wisconsin.
Yep.
That was outside. It was in the cold. I totally understand. This is going to be in a dome. I definitely think that favors the faster Oregon team.
Yep.
I think that is a big factor. So I think if Oregon jumps out early, I don't think Penn State can climb back in. But if Penn State can get a few touchdowns early and maybe then it could get interesting. I think Penn State needs to jump out early for this game to get competitive later on.
Penn State needs to do what Michigan did to Ohio State. Keep it ugly. Yes. Keep it a short football field, and like again, not allow for the speed to take over. I think the Ducks, the way they've looked at this season, is that it was football, Ohio State, and now it's been football, Big Ten Championship, and then it's going to be the playoffs. And why wouldn't they? Their schedule really didn't hold too much weight to it. They had some rivalries in there with Oregon State and of course Washington, but those teams didn't carry any weight like they had in the past. So I think the Ducks and Dan have no issues. They're coming off a massive recruiting weekend. There's a lot of energy. They're going to continue to sell. Dan knows what's on the line here. Again, James does too. I'm not a fan of James Franklin. I don't think he's a great coach. The Ducks have been a little arrogant as of late, and I kind of want to pick Penn State here. But I've been a fan of the Ducks all year. I'm not going to let a couple a-hole fans deter my thoughts. And again, I would love for the Duck to come in and win the Big Ten Championship year one. So, look, that's the competitor in me. I would love to see that. Jamari Ellis says $5. Says, "Happy birthday, my guy. Love the show. Been a fan for 2 years. Love what you do." Well, thank you, man. Appreciate you so much for the support. I'm sorry for let me get this up here. Because of the graphic, it's underneath it. So thanks, man, for the super chat so much. And then Q Lee says, "Happy birthday, Shelton." Thank you, my man. And Mr. Wiggs, $5 says, "Happy birthday. Go Gators." Yes, sir, man. Thank you guys for the birthday wish. I appreciate it. I'm getting old, man. Getting old.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rumors that Dan Lanning is going to get a big contract offer from the Bears. So that's very intriguing, especially if he wins a national title. What if he won a national title? He
could he hardball it out of there?
I don't see Lanning doing that. But yeah, I mean, if you get a big enough contract, you make it to the league. You make it to the league. So we'll see.
I think we're going to see a couple of the NFL teams try to attack one of these guys. I would be shocked if he left too, but will be interesting. Let me see here. We got Iowa State lined up for a field goal here. That would make it what?
10-10.
Yeah, 10-10. Just started the second quarter. So great football game as we thought it would be. Love the story for Arizona State. I think they were picked to finish at the bottom echelon. I mean, the teams that were picked to win the Big 12 were like Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Kansas was up there. None of these teams.
You know what they were picked?
West Virginia
were picked
too.
The dead last.
Yeah.
In the Big 12.
And I think it was like them in Colorado.
You remember our first episode when we talked about what was the biggest shakeup? Well, there you go, buddy. You have it. The Big 12, because no one knew who the hell was going to win that.
For me, the Big 12 was the one that was most wide open. I think people didn't have a clue what to expect, and I think like Utah, given their past, had the most kind of credibility going into that conference. And I was like, Oklahoma State kind of shocked everybody last year with their run that they went on. There was no rhyme or reason they should be good this year, and sure enough, we saw it. I think Colorado was a little too disrespected. I'm like, look, I know they had a rough season last year, but they're going to be better. I don't think they're going to just fall on there, in which they were. Kansas fell off. Kansas State, young quarterback. I think that was their big hurdle. I think they'll be much, much better next year. They'll be a team probably favored to win it all. Utah, I think, is going to fall off because Kyle Whittingham is in question whether or not he's going to coach again.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're seeing a lot of some of these coaches, older coaches, get out of college football the way it's gone because it's changed. The game's evolved. So just like Saban kicked out, like you're seeing other guys. There's a couple guys in college basketball that said this just ain't for them. Like they don't know how to adapt. So I think you are going to start seeing a lot younger coaches. Oklahoma State, once Gundy gone, I heard there's a big buyout for Gundy. They're done.
I think they settled it. They settled it from my understanding.
So there you go. Yep. So there you go. So, you're going to start seeing more. I think you're going to see more younger coaches come in. I really think that's about where we're headed just because of how the game has evolved.
Mike Gundy will remain at Oklahoma State after Gundy and school agree in principle to reconstruct contract, sources told. Yeah, because I think they wanted to pay him less. They're like, if you're going to stay, dude, we got to figure this thing out because this ain't working. So Gundy probably saw, he's like, I ain't got much time left. Let me see if I can ride this thing out. I think he enjoys coaching, but it's definitely passing him up as well, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see the Cam Newton thing the other day about how he hates the CFP and how it is and blah 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 blah. He just said that he basically no one wants to see Boise State, no one wants to see these teams. I mean, personally, I do. I don't know how you feel, but I want to see can a Boise State compete with these guys. I'm not saying all of them, but I think Boise has earned their spot. Personally, I think SMU has earned their spot. I think they have, they went from a smaller conference, went to the ACC, which the ACC is not great, but it's not a bunch of bums either. I mean, you have seen at the end of the year what the ACC has played. I mean, Georgia Tech was a middle of the road ACC team, and they played Georgia in Georgia. You can say it's a rivalry game, whatever, but it's still it's just teams are so good now. And it's it's hard to win. It's hard to win in college football. These athletes are good. You just get more and more recognition with social media, being able to find extra players that you would never find. I just think these teams are getting better. Nill's making it better. It's hard for me to I like it. I personally do. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I like that Boise State has an opportunity because that's teams like that, right? Like the JMU last year, we've always had they should get an opportunity to show what they can do. Boise State, when they played in that game with the fake statue, was the Fiesta Bowl like years ago. I really feel like that
Oklahoma.
projected the program right to where it is today. So these games, these moments allow for the program to grow and be competitive. And so I don't mind it. I think where someone made a good point was like, I don't know if they should do the bye week or the automatic bids for winning your championship. Because think about it. If whoever wins this Big 12 championship, if it was just by seeding, they wouldn't be in.
Well, that I think I like them getting the automatic bid. I don't necessarily like them getting a bye, if that makes sense. So like maybe Boise gets in, but they have to play in the first round.
Okay. So you're okay with still giving 5 spots to your champion, your Big Ten, your conference champions, because again, the NFL does that, right? If you win your conference, you're in. So I agree with you, but your seeding still matters. Now, if you're in your conference and you win, you do get a bye. It's a little bit different, but I think that there is a factor of that. Of yeah, do you give Boise State like an automatic that 5th ranking when they're like number 9 right now? So they're going to jump 6 teams or 5 teams to get in there, and are they better than those teams? But look, that's not the team's fault. That was how it was laid out. And I don't think when they made these rules, they saw it happening this way. Because when they also created the rules, the Pac-12 was still established, right? So if you had that, it wouldn't have been as, because originally it was the 5 power conferences get a spot plus one more, right? It was plus.
It was 4 plus one more. 4 plus one more.
It's always been 4 plus more?
Yeah, because I think the Pac-12 moved that to the 4. The highest 4 ranked conference champions got the bye.
So I know it was always that, and then it was the 5th one would get in.
The 5th got in.
But then I thought there was one spot for the other conferences at large, like the MAC, like whoever won that got one more spot. I thought that's how it was originally.
It could have been. I know. It's here's the thing. It's like we finally got it, but now it's not going to be perfect, and that's what everybody doesn't understand. They're going to have to tweak it a little bit, and they will. But this is what we wanted to see. We do have some tweaking to do, I feel like, because we could leave some teams out. Like I would love to see South Carolina in this thing, but like, they had some tough breaks and they had some bad loss. They had a bad loss and tough breaks, and it is what it is. But I would love to see them. I think they're playing the best of the 3 teams that didn't get in, like the Ole Miss, the Alabama, and the South Carolina. But they lost to both of them. So when you lose to both teams you're fighting against, you really don't have a leg to stand on. They might be playing better, but you got to beat somebody. You got to beat one of the playoff teams to get in. That's just my opinion. But it'll get tweaked, and I think we'll see it better.
When this got created, people were like, "Oh, the argument's just going to go from who should be that 4th spot to who should be that 12th spot." And like my argument was like, "Well, no, it won't really matter because that 12th seed's not going to be that big of a deal because in years past, I feel like the fall off's always been pretty." There's always been kind of the tiers. You got like 1 through 5 is tier 1, then 5 through 10 is tier 2, and like 11 through 14 is like tier 3. But you could argue that teams like Ohio State, right? Ohio State, Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and I'm trying to think of a few other ones, all kind of right there. I mean, they all kind of have an argument based on strength of schedule and who they played to be in there. Like 6 through 15 have a legitimate, like, what's separating them? You know what I mean? Just one loss, which then you could pull up strength of schedule. It's like, yeah, Ohio State has 2 losses, one to the number 1 team in the country, the other being an awful football team.
A Ryan Day loss is what we like to call it.
Yeah.
So 23.5 point favorite, and they lost. I mean, that's
I'm trying to look at the rankings now because I want to see, because it just, I didn't think people, I definitely didn't. But from no joke, Ohio State has 2 losses. Georgia has 2 losses. SMU, I don't count them. Indiana, people argue that because of who they've played. Boise State at 12-1, they're obviously good to go. But then you've got Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and even Arizona State and Iowa State all have 2 losses, but their credit, they're taking credit away because of their strength of schedule. So no joke, 5 through 16 are all 2-loss teams outside of a couple of 1 losses, but their schedule it is much tighter than I think I anticipated it to be, at least. And I think when the committee put this together, this was worst case scenario for them for year 1 anyways.
100%. I mean, no one had Indiana going 11-1 regardless of who they were playing. I mean, no one had that. That's just call it. And people can say, well, they got blitzed by Ohio State, and they did. But I don't know if people didn't watch that game, they don't really know how they got blitzed. It was special teams that did them in. They gave up a punt return. They had their punter dropped a punt. So like that game could have been, it could have been more competitive than it was. You can't give Ohio State 14 points. I don't know. Like Indiana, to me, anytime you go to a Power Five conference, regardless of who you're playing or Power Four, whatever you want to call it now, they were 11-1, and they beat good teams. It's not like they're beating bums. Like they're beating solid. If Ohio
by a
State
lot.
had that schedule and they were 11-1, they'd be the number one team in the country. So
Amen.
there you go.
And also,
So like,
too, we say that's a bad loss, although that was the number 2 team in the country. Yet Alabama lost to a non-bowling contender in Oklahoma, 24-3. They didn't even put a
when their season
touchdown
was
up.
on the line.
Yeah,
When their season was on the line.
yeah.
Milroe looked terrible. They couldn't
Come
do
on.
anything. Yeah, so I think Indiana has earned their spot. I think that's right.
Agreed.
I think SMU,
No question.
SMU is deserving.
Agreed.
And it's going to get different. It's going to be different every single year. And I think somewhere down the road we'll see 4 or 5 SC teams get in. I think we'll see 4 or 5 Big Ten teams get in. I think that's where we're headed. Like
I would almost argue that if you make because people were saying, hey, you should avoid the championship games. You could almost argue that, hey, if you make your conference championship, that you get in. Now, here's what people are going to say, well, all conferences are different. So this is where it gets finicky because there's clearly a discrepancy of schedule. Like that, how else do you justify how you rate these guys' losses? The fact that Indiana's 11-1 and plays in the exact same conference as Penn State, but is well below Penn State and these other guys doesn't make any sense, which we've said is a complete logo fever. And don't give me some bullshit about strength of schedule. Because again, I think that's a factor, but how much weight is it? I want to see because it's not Indiana's fault that Michigan and Washington had the fall off that they did. Because at the beginning of the season, you're looking at Indiana's schedule, like there's no way they're gonna be just cake walked all over again. Same thing with Florida, right? I mean, that schedule, it was still tough, but for FSU was big. I mean, how is that Florida's fault that FSU, you know what I mean? Like there's that factor that goes into it. So if you want to treat all these guys, favorably, but then the SEC gets frustrated. It's like, well, we're getting beat to shit by playing in a tougher conference. How's that fair?
Well, and you sit back and if you look, like these preseason rankings obviously don't mean anything. I mean, you rank a team preseason, but we have no idea how good they are. Like Florida State's number 10 in the country. They gave 2-10. I mean, we don't know. And that's the issue. Like you penalize teams. And I said this last year that Florida State was penalized. They said the LSU win wasn't very good, but the LSU win was
Really
they were
good.
number 5 in the country. You told us they were number 5 in the country.
Yeah.
So why weren't they number 5 in the country? They had the Heisman Trophy winner, and his worst game was against FSU. I'm just saying, like, we have to figure out a way that I would almost argue that you could do, instead of naming the teams and showing a logo, you could almost bring the BCS and kind of combo it with the playoff and plug them in a system and have an algorithm say, these are your top 12 teams. These are how we should see them. And just, it wouldn't even know who they are.
Yeah.
So that would be intriguing to me also.
It's preseason rankings that used to not matter. I would not care. I think they carry a ton of weight now because you realize you come in weighted, right? So when you lose a game, you can't drop someone back too far. And so when you when you walk into the season with that, that's massive. Ole Miss walks in as a favorite 7 seed. So if they lose a game, it's like, but they're still up here, right? You know what I mean? Like it matters more than I've ever realized it, and I noticed it this year. A team like, again, every team in the Big 12, I don't think anybody was ranked coming in besides Utah. So they're trying to climb up and take teams out of the top 25. That if you're Ole Miss and have 4 easy games, well, you're going to have 4 games you're going to stack on top of already being favored because of what they feel you should be like. In all reality, we should have week 0 come in and you be completely goose-egged, and how you win justifies it because you come in the next season. Because Florida, look, I think I used to not care, but I think Florida's going to be favored going into next season, which is going to be huge.
Yeah. I also agree. I mean, preseason rankings, this is why I think, and I've always said this, we should not start ranking teams to about week 5. I think that's about when we should start ranking teams. Schedule the guys you think are going to be good. Do what you can to make yourself improve. But week 5, if you're, we're going to start ranking you at that point because, like you said, if your program's not usually known for being good, and you're the 40th ranked team, whatever,
Like
you're fighting the whole entire time to get up into the top 12. To where if you start number 5 and you have 2 or 3 losses, like you can still be number 12 just because
Yeah.
of your preseason rank.
And people say, oh, well, the playoff rankings come out at like week 7. I'm like, yeah, but if you don't think that AP poll for the last 7 weeks doesn't have a factor into that, you're crazy because they've damn near been identical. Maybe a team or two has been swapped. So that's something that I think needs to be looked at is how you head into the season. So,
yes.
Well, boys,
Maybe we
great.
shouldn't bring out rankings until then, until week 7. So
yeah, I agree. I think even because after week 1, you don't have much, and that also encourages you. And maybe if you do it after week 1, that encourages you to go schedule a harder schedule. They don't go play at Maine, Georgia. If you play Maine week 1, and you've got in Florida versus Miami, well, these two teams are are looked at as a higher caliber of team, and that's where I guess it gets a little bit tough. But you can take into consideration like, okay, this is a Power 4 conference. This is a better win than a win over a nobody. And now, okay, what Saban and these guys have complained about, it's like, why would we schedule hard when it doesn't justify? Well, no, now it will. Now it will help you in the first couple of weeks. It'll help stack up your ranking, right? And how you're looked at. So definitely something to look at. Boys and girls, let's Colorado might play Miami. That'd be huge, but I don't think Cam Moore plays. I think he's gonna pansy out. But great show with Cowboy Ty here. We've got Army Navy next week. Maybe we'll do a little fun show for that. I mean, why not? And then the playoffs are the 20th. We have a Friday and the 21st. So we'll definitely do a show for the playoffs. I mean, how can we? It's gonna be like today. I mean, it's just electric. So Iowa State, I think, is up now. They scored again. I think they're up 20 or 17-10. I think they went down and scored pretty quickly. So this is my thought. Yeah, 17-10. And if Arizona State can get a quick stop and score again, I think that's where this game will get out of hand. But Cowboy Ty, pleasure as always, boys and girls. Smash the like button, subscribe. This show is, of course, brought to you by BetUS. We'll see you boys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.